go. Episode number 7, Wings Up Weekly, Tennessee Tech Athletics video podcast. Excited to talk to our guest this afternoon. We've got Tennessee Tech head softball coach Michelle DePolo. Coach, it's great to see you. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. Good to see you too.
Absolutely. And so the way we like to get started here on Wings Up Weekly, first and foremost, is get an update on how each person's team is doing that we speak to. With the semester over, finals and online classes now in the rearview mirror, what can you tell us about the members of Tennessee Tech softball?
Yeah, everyone's pretty much settled in, back at home or getting ready to kick off their summer plans. Pretty much all of them are going to be working some form of job, some form of employment near their homes, and working on softball skills and getting ready to come back here this fall.
So your team able to finish the semester academically very strong, a 3.62 GPA. That was the best GPA in a semester in Tennessee Tech softball history. Given all the circumstances and how things change so drastically, what do you think that says about your group of student athletes?
Oh, I think they adjusted really well. I mean, I think our Miss Levita Dexter and Sam Bates, our academic personnel, were just absolute rock stars in helping guide that transition between the brick and mortar classes to online. I mean, every player that I talked to at the end of the year just said what rock stars they were. And I agree. I mean, I talked to them probably at least twice a week minimum to make sure our athletes were getting what they needed, if there's anything I could help with from the coaching vantage point. I think it's really interesting for the softball team because we traveled so frequently and we were go, 100%. We were on the road. We were getting ready to be into conference, and then all of a sudden you have nothing to do except study. So I think it might have showed them how to, they took advantage of that extra time. But again, they get so much credit for all the adjustments. And really, honestly, the Tennessee Tech, I thought the staff and faculty during this transition was really amazing. It's so wonderful to see what can happen when staff, faculty, supports, coaches all rally around and try to get what's best for a student, and the student recognizes that and is able to employ that.
Yeah, and one of the things you said in your response early on really kind of dealt with mindset and perspective on this situation. I go back to a video that you had about a month and a half ago. A lot of the head coaches at Tennessee Tech did about a short video that was on social media, kind of about the message to supporters and fans during this situation. And one of the things that you talked about in that video was to make adjustments, to adapt, to keep this in perspective, to be thankful for what we have. That is such a spot-on perspective for all of us during this time. But for 18 to 22-year-old college student athletes who've had their season abruptly end in the way they did, I'm sure that that sort of perspective has been invaluable for them during this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's key. It's interesting. I mean, this week, even doing some end of the year meetings or even just continuing Zoom meetings with our players. And one of the things we talked about was with one player specifically, making mental adjustments during the course of a game. And so it's funny because we were just talking about how that's, we always echo how important sports is during life and how it can help. And that is a real world example of how important it is. You make an in-game adjustments or else in the softball game, or else you're not going to be successful in softball. You make the in-game adjustments in life or else you're not going to be successful. And a lot of that bleeds into your approach and your attitude. But I do think that attitude of just appreciation, just for the things we've had, for the ability to be in safe environments, have the healthcare that we have available to us, and all these. I mean, look at these tools that we have. You and I can do an interview on Zoom, and my favorite thing in the world now, apparently. But they can still continue to get a college education through internet, through different forms of technology. I mean, how wonderful is that for us to be able to do, or stay in touch with our loved ones. We could have loved ones all over the country, all over the world, and we're still able to see their faces, hear their voices, and how lucky are we for all those wonderful things. But I think, yeah, the adjustments, and they did back to the adjustment piece, they did a really wonderful job. It is a huge shift to just stop everything and readjust everything, readjust how you learn. I also think college is a lot about learning how to learn. So if you can see how you learn via internet, in person, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, those are going to take you really far in any aspect.
Well, a couple of things that you brought up too, and even a little bit earlier on this episode, was how it stopped and so abruptly the season. One of the things that we've done here on Wings Up Weekly, whoever our guest is kind of get a sense what it was like when all of these changes took place. It's interesting because our very first episode here on Wings Up Weekly was with Tennessee Tech Director of Athletics, Mark Wilson. And when we asked him that question, he immediately told us about softball, and I guess how your team was ready on a Thursday to get on a bus to go to Johnson City to play in the ETSU Classic, 5 games over the weekend, over those next 3 days. But because of everything going on, you had to wait and see. What do you remember about that time period now 2.5 months ago?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly remember a lot because I had actually gotten a call earlier in the week that I'm from a very small town. There's maybe 5,000, very small, beautiful, leafy town, but I have family there who's elderly and everything, and that this particular disease hit that town before it was the first school system in New Jersey to close down, which is where I'm from. So that kind of gave me a little bit of looking at, oh no, this is kind of going everywhere. But I actually happened to be home getting ready to travel during the course of the day because we had practice in the afternoon, and I kept seeing tickers on like ESPN and just internet stuff. And I think it was the Ivy League, the Patriot League, were the first softball or the first athletic conferences that cut off their entire spring seasons during that day. And then the NBA players who tested positive in the NBA came on the news, and that was pretty. So during the course of the day, myself and Carly, my assistant, kept re-upping and seeing all the different conferences that made adjustments. So we called the bus company, we pushed that back about an hour or two, just knowing that things went literally from 0 to 60 in a day in that Thursday. We went through practice, and it was great until the NCAA, someone, with smartphones and all that stuff, the NCAA had sent out a message that they were canceling the postseason. So we knew we were going to have some form of adjustment. It was hard. I went over to a meeting, left the team. Luckily, we had dinner for them in the locker rooms and the team rooms. So left them, went over, had the meeting, and then sent the bus home and then talked to them about the year. So I'm really glad that we were able to be together and I was able to talk to them face to face. It at least eases the transition a little bit as opposed to a phone call or people being all over the place. But even then it was so moving so differently, moving at different paces, and there was just so many more questions than there was answers. And then you just got to take it one step at a time.
Yeah, and it seems because it was so long ago, and for us sports fans, live sports feels like forever ago. But your team had played 19 games, had a winning record, did a lot of positive things, got off to such a great start this year, 5-1, which was the best beginning for Tennessee Tech softball in the last 23 years. What are some of the things that stick out to you about the first, I guess, third of the season for the Golden Eagles this year?
Yeah, every team at the beginning of the year is kind of doing what I call a shake run, where you're just trying to figure out what pieces are working, kind of working through the the system, the games, the double headers, the tournament, and see what's working, what do we need to make adjustments on. So even more so with me being a new coach, really seeing these athletes in these situations. So I just think we did in all fall, I talked to them about, it's not necessarily the win or loss piece. It's about how are we making adjustments from game to game. And then it's not like how are we making adjustments from game to game, how are we making adjustments that we need to in games. I thought we did a good job, and athletes did a good job of being really prepared for any situation that we were going to encounter during the course of any game. So even if something might have caught us off guard during the beginning, we made wonderful adjustments as the season went on. I think Bowling Green's a great example. We played them twice during those 19 games, and the pitcher had a really fantastic outing, their freshman pitcher. I think it was her first game actually in the Bowling Green uniform. And really we just had our hardest offensive day of the year. We saw her again a couple weeks later, and we were able to win the game in a tight game against that respective pitcher. And that is just so indicative of how the season was progressing. But everything is really just a process. The girls hit the ball well. Our defense definitely improved during the course. We had a lot of rain early in the season, so getting out and getting defense outside was a challenge for us at the beginning of the year. But the team was gelling very well. So all those things will be a good recipe and figuring who fits where, mitigating through injuries or little nuances like that. All those things are going to serve you well as the season goes on.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Still a week away from OVC play at the time. The way the schedule works, still 3 weeks away from even the home opener. But as you discuss your team's ability to make adjustments and hitting and the defense coming along, that being said, what are some of the things that excite you about the future and the direction of Golden Eagle softball?
Yeah, when you're a new coach and you walk into an environment, you don't know what you're going to walk into. You don't know how athletes are going to perceive you. They don't know, all that stuff. Not that I'm afraid of a perception, but they're the majority. So you got to figure that out. The team has been wonderful. The team has been great. They're just such a really great group of young ladies. The administration and Tennessee Tech specifically, just so supportive. I mean, really, it's a wonderful, wonderful place to work. And the athletes are just really great young ladies to be around every day. And the reason I even bring that up is the number one piece of this answer is because from that platform, you can go anywhere. When your team culture, when your team personnel, when your support personnel is all in, and their hearts and their minds and their physical beings are 100% into it, it's just the sky's the limit. So that piece has been there, and it's a culture that we're going to continue to foster in a positive manner. The team is very willing to do. They want to be successful. They want to put in the effort. They want to do those things. So that piece is another thing that's very exciting because, even as long as you do your best, I'm really a big believer in if you're doing your best from an effort point and a preparation point, and you're really just trying to hit your physical limits as a team and as an individual and as a team together, and then you let the chips fall where they may, positive things will happen. And if you lose a game or if you lose something, then that's why you play the game. I mean, that is why you play. So I think there's so much emphasis sometimes when people lose and if they're failures or something. You play for the competition. You play to see how you can continue to increase. So I'm not afraid of failure with the team, with myself, with anybody. All of that together is super exciting. I think we have a really good balance, and we're continuing to work a balance of both offensive strength, offensive speed, average. I thought our averages increased tremendously from the year before. And we focused a lot on that a little bit more over the single, long ball. Our pitching staff grew a lot. We have a lot of variety. And we have really just a team of of beginning to end who want to contribute in any way they can to the positive outcomes of Tennessee Tech softball. So all of that, the day-to-day attitude and ability excites me. We have a lot of people who can play different positions. I think the thing that's going to be exciting but also interesting is this year that we're going to get into is going to be like a year no one's ever experienced. Just all the mitigations, the budget cuts, the schedule changes, the uncertainty. The uncertainty is probably the biggest word right now. We're going to have to be flexible. We just don't know what's coming down. So, but that keeps life exciting, I think.
Well, that's all great stuff. There is a lot of excitement going forward in the direction of Golden Eagle softball. What has this last year been like for you personally? I mean, this has been kind of a crazy time for all of us, but you moved down to Cookeville last August. You worked so hard at you and your staff to get to the spring, to get to the point where the season actually begins. Play the 19 games, season stops abruptly. I mean, I just have to believe this has just been such a crazy year for you personally the last several months.
Well, I'm not bored, so that's a really good thing. I have never really sat there and said, man, I am bored today. So yeah, it has been the transition. I mean, I really approached it with a wholehearted effort and excitement. So when you have that, and again, I just think things, that is life. You get thrown, no pun intended, maybe pun intended, you get thrown curveballs. And weakest point of hitting was with curveball when I was in college, but whatever. But no, you get thrown those changes, and that is something that keeps it exciting. So, I've had an ability to have to incur a lot of different changes throughout the course of my career. So it's prepared me well in terms of being, persevering through a little bit of discomfort. And discomfort, I think, is, it is just that. It's uncomfortable, but it helps you grow, and it helps you see things, and it helps you look for opportunities as opposed to maybe pity or dwelling. So, I mean, I think there were so many changes for all the young ladies too. Look at the freshmen had to go through the same process. They moved here. There's their first year of college. There was a small fire in the freshman dorm, and then we have a tornado. I'm from New Jersey, and I've lived in New Jersey, New York my whole life. So I'm sitting here Googling what to do in a tornado because I've never experienced one. And I'm okay admitting that on social media. But, the whole thing, it would be different wherever you were in the world right now. Everyone's dealing with the same idea of newness and uncertainty. So flexibility, and these are just such really valuable life skills for all our athletes too. But yeah, the change has been, like I said, I'm not bored, which is great. But really, I couldn't have asked for a better environment to be in. The support, the Mark Wilson, President Oldham, even, at the university level, their leadership has been simply exemplary. The staff, I mean, everyone is just, everywhere you turn, someone's willing to help in any way you can. And you can't put a price tag on being in an environment like that. And in turn, it makes everyone else reciprocate with the same type of attitude.
All right. Well, we've heard at great length at this point from Michelle DePolo, the coach. What I kind of want to hear a little bit about Michelle DePolo, the player. So you played collegiately at Georgian Court, an NAIA school in Lakewood, New Jersey. Not just softball, but lettered in basketball and soccer as well. You end up getting inducted into their athletics Hall of Fame. In softball, you had a season with a .50 ERA. Coach, it sounds like you're a pretty good pitcher.
Yeah, you don't want to know these. You ask questions that I don't think you want to know the answers to. These are things you all have to learn. No, I did have a really great experience collegiately. And, it's funny because I have spent the majority of my time coaching at the Division I level. But the reality of me is Division II is a wonderful fit. Georgian Court was a great school. Recruiting and college sports, college softball was just worlds different back then. You know, there was no, think about a world where there was no social media, there was no cell phones, there was no, I mean, there's cell phones, but they were not smartphones. Really, there was no internet. I couldn't just look up Georgian Court and look up a roster. There was no Georgian Court website. There was no any other website at that time. So it was a great fit. We ended up going Division II, and I liked the environment because everyone has certain physical limits. I mean, I'm 5'5", and like I told Mark Wilson when we were talking, I've got arms and legs that can fit in a Pringles can. I'm really not your physical force to be reckoned with on an athletic field, but I really just loved participating. I loved working myself to my physical limits, which were different and probably lesser than certain people, and really enjoyed contributing. I really enjoyed the experience at college altogether, which drove me to love representing the school on an athletic venue as well as athletics and academics, excuse me. I really did have a nice balance of athletics. Again, I wasn't bored since I did play 3 sports. It definitely got me out of trouble, helped me make some good decisions. And I don't know, I just knew I had 4 years left really to play competitive athletics, and that was it. And I did not intend to ever be a coach. That just was not something that was in my mind. I don't know how many women were actually making, or coaches were making salaries coaching at that time, but it just wasn't really in my mind. So I didn't even know we had a Hall of Fame. So all of those things were just, you know, it was very, get out there, do the best you can, contribute, be a good person, be a good teammate, represent your school well, and let the chips fall where they may. So that was just really the inner thought process every day. And like I said, I wasn't really a force to be reckoned with. We had a great team. I think when you're a pitcher, you know, you're only as good as the team behind you. So I had a really wonderful defense behind me and other complementing pitchers. We were different styles. They threw harder, they threw just differently. So it was a really great year for us as a team, and it was just 100% team effort.
Spoken like a true pitcher, of course, given all the credit to your defense. Well said. But right, but let me ask you this: in the years you were at Georgian Court, and your team had a lot of success, to me that thinks, okay, there must have been a fair amount of big games. Is there a game, a moment, something that stands out to you while you were in the circle?
That's a really good question. Game, a moment. I don't know. I mean, I think I have a lot of little moments, and I don't even know why some of them stick out. You know, and there's good and bad. You know, there's things that adversity. I do remember once we were in the national tournament, and it was not actually in the circle. I don't know why I remember this, but I think I played. So something that a lot of people don't know is I played every position during the course of my college career, in addition to pitching, except catcher. It's the only position I never got in during the course of an actual game. So something had happened, and I had been playing other positions. I'd been playing I think a lot of second base or something during this particular year. I don't know if we just had injuries or illness, and I ended up having to go into right field, and I hadn't really practiced that at all. So we're in the national tournament, we're in an elimination game, and a ball came my general direction. And I think if I could have had a panic attack, I probably would have, but I didn't have time. So I just felt like it took an eternity for the ball to get to me. I ended up having to dive for it. I don't even remember if I actually had to dive or if I just did it out of pure nervousness and not wanting to let my team down. So it was one of those little Texas leaguers between second and right field. And I just remember catching it and thinking, like, I think I'm going to collapse right now. And it was just pure shock and anxiety that I was out there. But luckily, it was probably the ugliest catch known to man, but I think I caught it. And I know I caught it, but then we went on. So there's just a lot of little memories, I think, like that. And being there with your team, those are all the things. And I tell the athletes a lot, you might not remember some big moment, and you'd think the last game of your career, the first game of your career is going to stand out. For me, it just doesn't. It's a lot of the things in between. So those were, I'm sure I have endless memories as they're coming about now, and just little things like that.
Well, did you win that game? Did that catch propel your team to victory? That great catch you made?
Okay, we got out of the inning and no one scored, and I did my job, and that's all I could ask for.
Right.
And I didn't lose any hair or teeth in the process, so that was all good.
That's a win then. So
I know. I think when I played other positions, I knew how it felt to be on the mound.
Okay.
So I always wanted to do really well for the team, certainly, and the outcome, but the pitcher on the mound, because I'm thinking, if I'm on the mound, like, I want this ball caught.
Yeah.
So it propelled us to get to the next inning.
There you go. That's all that matters right there. Yeah. You then obviously have this very successful coaching career and the 9 seasons as the head coach at Army. Your first year there, 2010, you guys win the Patriot League regular season title for only the 3rd time in program history. 2013, when the conference tournament gets to the Austin Regional, and then 2016, the all-time winningest season in Army, going 39-20. Again, I'm sure a lot of big moments, big games, and things like that. Are there any the particular games, moments, plays, similar question to what we just asked, that stick out to you while you were the coach there?
Yeah, again, a lot. I think the biggest game, though, was just the emotional piece when we won that regular season championship, because we hadn't, and we had to play Lehigh, who was the league perennial twice, and they had just put a real good whooping on us not less than 48 hours beforehand. But the emotional piece of it, just the connectivity of pitcher to catcher, the hitters, you're in the offensive side, and really stifling a wonderful team. Lehigh was a great team that year, and just experiencing a different emotional shift than I had ever really seen. And there's everything on the line: your season, your year, a regional berth, and you're on the other team's field, and they had just really stalked you 48 hours before, and they're a good team. So just looking and seeing, every single person was into every single pitch. Like, it was the most vital thing. I was in the same boat, of course, me and our staff, and watching the athletes just step up. We ended up winning game 1. So then we had to go to game 2. And you have to play, it's double elimination, so you have to win that second game. And just so then we ended up having the same pitcher pitch 2 games, and she did a amazing job. Catcher caught 2 games too. She did the same thing. But even just starting that second game, we had a player who just, it was like she hit a home run to lead off the game. And it was just, you heard a crack of the bat, and I felt like I was in the slow motion movie where the ball just takes about 10 years to get over the center field fence. And that fence was a deep fence. It was a deep park. So it just sort of was just setting, like, these athletes, just watching them rise to the occasion and set the tone. And that team was a really great team. A lot of wonderful young ladies on that team who deserved, they put so much effort in, so they deserved when they were talented enough to do it. But Lehigh hadn't lost a double header by shutout. We shut them out. Oh, gosh, I should probably remember that. But it was like 94. And
wow.
And they earned it. They were a wonderful, wonderful team.
Wow.
Well coached, great team. So, and then just the emotions. I'm not a crier at all, but the emotions of that win was just so emotional. It got a little bit stifled because we had a straight downpour hit as soon as the game was over. And that would have been a really interesting shift in emotion that I think would have gone the other direction, just because we were in such a zone. When you talk about in the zone, that is one time I'll ever remember till the day I die, about being in a zone.
Well,
So that was a really neat highlight. Mm-hmm.
I
And
mean,
again,
that's great.
that team effort, once again, I mean, really, it was just like every person somewhere along that line did something wonderful and game changing to help the team, including the dugout, everyone who was even in the dugout. So really great experience.
Yeah, and as a coach, I mean, I'm sure that you can't ask for much more when it probably feels so good when it's the entire team. And as you mentioned, even from the dugout, I'm sure players that weren't even in the game, but it was that much of a team effort is what it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be a few times if you look at any game, look at any softball game, any Major League Baseball game, there's so few times where for 2 games, for 14 straight innings, not one person is sitting down. Not one person is taking a break, like even a mental break. It was just everyone's up on the dugout fence. Everyone is engaged in every single pitch for 14 innings. That's intense. That's really intense. And positively engaged, really, really fully engaged. So I think just a great experience for everybody in that, where it's like you try to, as a coach, as a team, you try to duplicate that all the time. And it's hard, if not impossible, but we were able to do it at that point. And I'm so thankful that the young ladies were able to experience that during the course of their career, because they certainly deserve it.
So when I asked you that initial question, I wasn't sure if we might hear from another game against Lehigh in 2016 Patriot League tournament where there was a play. It's not every day that you're Sports Center #1, and it's certainly not every day that you have a play that you get nominated for an ESPY for Play of the Year. Casey McCravey in this game, and hopefully our video production and in post-production we can put this play up here because I won't do it justice trying to describe it. But there's a base hit to center field. She's trying to score. The throw beats her, and then incredibly, phenomenally jumps over the catcher, like completely catcher standing up, jumps over, gets her hand in, touches plate, doesn't get tagged, scores, elimination game. Your dugout is going crazy. I guess you were the third base coach. What do you remember most about a play that gets nominated for an ESPY?
I mean, that's all Casey. Her name's Casey McCravey, the athlete who performed that feat. That's her. I mean, to be honest, I was ecstatic that anyone else could see what I had the privilege of watching every day. Not that she made that play every day, but she would make equally as impressive athletic plays every single day, every game, every day at practice. There was times at practice, sometimes where I was caught off guard. She played third for us, and someone would ask, did we do that play right? Did we do this? Or is that timing right? And I was like, I don't know. Like, honestly, I have to admit that I was watching Casey perform something absolutely insane physically that was just mind-boggling. So, yeah, I was on third. I mean, there's just nothing. You can't prepare for it. She didn't prepare. She's actually done something very similar in high school, and I knew about that. Where the catcher went low and she jumped over her. So, yeah, what a just a big moment in the big time. And actually, the player who I referred to earlier about hitting a home run that went over the fence was Casey.
Okay.
So, she is just a once in a lifetime athlete. I remember, someone was even saying in the recruiting trail, who are you going to find to replace Casey? And I was like, no, nobody is Casey. Like, we'll find a good player. We did, but no one is she. And we didn't rehearse it. I think a lot of people asked if we had rehearsed that, and if anything, I said, you're making me look bad for going, but you're making me look good because you're safe. So. I don't know. It's just one of those things too, where anyone else in the world should have never gone home on a short little hit up the middle like that, where the center fielder from Lehigh is a great center fielder. Catcher's a great catcher. They executed their play phenomenally, and I think again that's sports. They executed their. Allie Orshenskis was the one who hit the ball. She did a great job putting the ball up the middle. Lehigh did a great job fielding, and then Casey just made an ESPN highlight. So what a wonderful thing to watch in sports. And I'm so glad that video was on it, because we don't get video on all our games. And that's the problem, is like I say, I see that every day. We don't video all our practices, all our games. So there's so many wonderful, equally wonderful plays, maybe not as wonderful, but that people got to see, or we got to see every day that other people didn't. But yeah, I know, certainly a highlight.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully we can embed it and people can watch it, but if not, you have to go to YouTube. I think I watched it like 15 straight times, because every time I was like, it defies. She just jumps over the catcher. And what's cool is the dugout is on the third base side. The team's going crazy. And so you're the third base coach. And there's like a moment for the SportsCenter top 10 video where you like touch the ground with both hands. You probably were just, I mean, what was your emotion like? So unbelievable that this happened.
Like, what do you do? What do you do? I mean, the game's there's still a base runner in play, and the team's gonna go crazy. So apparently that's the only person I thought I could high five was the ground. Maybe I don't know. It's just purely a raw emotion where I probably had some choice phrases in excitement coming out of my mouth that I probably just also ducked to the ground to celebrate with that. But yeah, it's just, I think that's the emotion, is just like, who does this? Who does this here and when? But even, I saw the throw coming out, so I was like, dang, one of my best base runners is going to be out. It's a tie game, and then all of a sudden you're just like, leave it to Casey, because she's one of a kind, and the only person I think I've ever really met on a ball field that could do something like that. So yeah, kind of embarrassing. Maybe I'm like hitting the ground, but
that's great.
That's what it is. There's probably a lot worse things I've done on the field that hopefully hasn't been caught on camera.
Well, it's great, and hopefully people, if they're not able to see it, they go and they YouTube it, because it's just such an awesome play. We're starting to wind down our time here on Wings Up Weekly. You brought up earlier, from New Jersey, spent most of the time before here in Tennessee in the Northeast. So what are we looking at in terms of favorite teams growing up, favorite teams, like Yankees, New York teams, Philadelphia teams? What are some of your favorite sports teams?
You could do a whole nother episode, if you're from New Jersey, talking about sport team loyalties, and whether it's New York, Philadelphia, everyone's. So I grew up really I had two, my dad obviously, but two older brothers. And so I just kind of did, I think, what a lot of people do, and grow up becoming fans of the teams that they're fans of. So from a baseball perspective, we were all about the Mets, which is not always the favorite choice, but, you got to stand true to your roots, as my brother calls it, the promised land when we go to the stadium. But really just, kind of an all sports family. It's interesting to always know where loyalties come from. But those Philly fans, they can be a little rough. Us, we never really associated with any of those Philly fans. But yeah, I think, again, I'm just sort of a sport fan of whenever you can find stand-up athletes who are great combination of physical aptitude and team attitude. I mean, and that was something I think that was super important. As I grew up, I had great mentors who always stressed the combination of both when we were watching pro sports, and just their attitudes, their team first attitudes, and all those athletes, and those athletes who were good thinkers of the game were really highlighted too. So those are fun times, contemplating and watching games on TV and everything.
You brought up Mets, and you talk about athletes. Do you have a favorite athlete, a favorite Met, a favorite baseball player, one that comes to mind?
Not super favorite. Like I just never was one of these people that gets caught up in one person. I really did like, I think because I was a pitcher and because I was small, and I really liked Greg Maddox
Oh yeah,
pitching.
yeah.
You know, I think everything about it, you know, just down to all his change of speeds, his absolute command of the strike zone, and also how, you know, if you even look at him physically, he's not someone you'd walk around and be like, you're a pro ball player. And so I really enjoyed watching him and getting to see his career. And then I even thought, like, how funny is it with, there was that one commercial, you know, where this guy's like just dropping bombs, and there's women around, and he's like, got a couple Cy Young winners over here. How it's just like, you know, it's not a sexy thing, but it's so effective, and how it's so silently effective. And that was just a lot of how I think I emulated my career on the mound and in any venue, really.
Well, that's, I have to say, a smart thing to say coming down here to Tennessee and saying, when asked one of your favorite players, you drop a Brave. So that's a good move on your part.
I didn't even think of that. That was not calculated.
Well, Coach, this has been a lot of fun. Appreciate having you on. We'll end with one final word message, and we'll have you kind of, during these times of uncertainty, kind of going forward, what your message would be to Golden Eagle fans, Golden Eagle supporters of Tennessee Tech softball, and just kind of going forward, what you'd like your message to be.
To the fans and supporters, we appreciate you. We miss you. We are really, again, this is kind of someone coming in. I think our fans and supporters, most of them have been longtime fans and supporters. So as coming from someone who's new, what an incredible unit to be welcomed into. And I'm so grateful and thankful to be part of this university and part of this community. And we meaning the athletic department, every person from top to bottom is just, they're all in. They're really great people to be associated with. And we're going to continue to need your help. And your help could be any piece, whether it's just simple support, engagement, visibility, and, you know, there's always a monetary option, but really just the emotional, physical support. You know, we love it. The athletes love it and appreciate it too. So to them, I'd say thank you. You are valued every day, probably more than is shared with you on a daily basis. And looking forward to seeing everybody again face to face.
All right, Coach, great stuff.
Flexible this year. That's what we need to be.
Yeah.
Flexible.
Without a doubt, Coach. Great stuff. Appreciate you coming on and joining us here for this episode of Wings Up Weekly.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
Definitely. Well, that's going to do it. Another episode number 7, Tennessee Tech Athletics video podcast here on Wings Up Weekly.